Hello and welcome to Australian Christian's first media training video. I'm Steve Klomp. It's great to have your company. I know, like me, you're probably very keen that Australian Christians is successful as a political group so that we can send Christ's message to all of Australia and we can use Christ as the basic underpinning of our law and our government system in Australia. That's a big task, of course, going from very little to a lot. And it's very important, of course, if we're going to make that happen, that we give a consistent message and that our message is unable to be diluted by the media. So there is quite a bit to learn, and we only have a very short video here. What our plan today is to give you the basics, to let you know the sort of things that you need to think about and the importance of practice, of course, which we'll be talking about later, to give you a start and give you a chance to give our message out to the media as we need you to do. The main points in this video are on etiquette, how to behave, how to act, how to dress, things of that nature, speaking, and respect for all people. And just to give you some idea of what not to do, we thought we might include some information, or rather a video, on some people who are speaking and behaving in ways we'd rather you didn't use.
So what makes a powerful and persuasive speech? I guess something that's memorable.
My name is Phil Davison, and I am seeking our party's nomination for the position of Stark County Treasurer. Then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House! I will hit the ground running, come out swinging, and end up winning!
I'm the king of the world!
And I will not apologize for my tone tonight. I have been a Republican in times good, and I have been a Republican in times bad.
This next part of the video is on respect for all people. Not everyone shares the same beliefs that we do, obviously, and sometimes it's hard to know how to deal with those people when we're in a media situation, particularly when the journalist is being aggressive towards us or when the audience that we're dealing with is aggressive. I suppose that the great lesson there is the gentleness and respect lesson. You might like to look up 1 Peter 3:15.
There's this wonderful scripture, 1 Peter 3:15. It says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. Always be prepared, but do it with gentleness and respect.
But we have some specific questions, so we'll ask those first and we'll go from there.
So Steve, you mentioned earlier the journalist that's getting a bit aggro to you. How do you deal with that situation?
Well, journalists, how can I put this? Once upon a time, news was actually news, and I suppose news is still news, but it's also entertainment. And if we have a person who is getting cross, aggressive, or showing extremes of any emotion, it's very entertaining, which is very sad in some ways, and probably a terrible indictment of our society. But it is not unreasonable for a person to want to portray a certain thing, so they can become very aggressive towards you. But you can't meet aggression with aggression. Essentially, you have to be calm and respectful all the time. It may still be that the message that you are trying to give is diluted or violated in some way. There's nothing you can do about that. What the thing for you to do is to remain calm and respectful and just give your message. And don't meet aggression with aggression. I know there is an overwhelming desire to do so because you really believe what it is you're saying, but it doesn't come over well on media. So the best thing to do is to be calm all the time. Just think of it as your children. They've really given you a terrible time and they're very cross, and you can match that, but the situation just escalates, generally speaking. So just be calm and just state your message. If they don't give you the chance to do that, that's fine. Then that's just the way it is.
So Steve, what about if the journalist keeps pushing a point that's totally opposite to what Australian Christians believes? How do you deal with that situation?
Yeah, you have to speak your truth quietly, but you still have to speak it. So what you have to say to the journalist is, I understand the question you're asking me, and I know what you're trying to suggest, but no, Australian Christians don't believe that. We believe X. And then you just state what that X is. Just simply that way. You might notice it with people generally. If they're angry and you speak more quietly, there is a good chance that their anger will lessen in intensity, and you have to do the same technique on media as well. So they will be pushing a point. I mean, one of the things about Christians is we are persecuted, and which is one of the reasons why we don't necessarily like to speak our truth. Perfectly understandable. We are persecuted. People will try and say certain things, make you say certain things. And sometimes just to have it stop, you say yes when you really mean no. The trick is to say, look, I see what you're saying, but I can't agree with you. The Australian Christian position on that issue is X, and then you say what X is. Speaking of that, the Australian Christians, of course, have party policy on many things. There's probably about 10 or 12 videos being made already on different policies we have. Return to the policy as much as it's possible for you to do. Tell people about the policy. Yes, I do know what you're saying, but no, Australian Christians don't believe in that. Our policy on this issue says X, 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 and you tell them that.
So Steve, that's a really good lead to another question that fits in with respect. If you've been set up to do an interview, not set up, set yourself being allowed to do an interview on topics A, B and C, and all of a sudden the journalist, to try and create the entertainment value, brings in a topic way out of left field or right field about which you know very little or don't know nothing. What's your best option there?
If you don't know about something, it's okay to say that you don't know about it, or if you're not expert on it, you can say, look, my belief is this. The Australian Christians have an expert on that, and his name is Trevor, or his name is Dwight or Ray, and we will give you a press release about that within the next hour. So rather than trying to answer a question that you're not comfortable with, you can state what you that we have expertise in that area, and that you will make sure that the interviewer gets that expertise. The other thing is, it's not a problem to not answer at all. Now, by that I mean you don't just sit there and don't say anything. But what I mean is you can say, I choose not to answer that question. I am talking today about these 3 issues. That's perfectly okay. Remember, if you give them the material, they can use it. So if you aren't comfortable with the material, or if you don't think the question is appropriate, you don't have to give them any material. You might also find, if you're working in the Australian Christians office or your own office one day, and someone rings you up and it's 10 to 6 and the news is on at 6 p.m. that night and they're desperate for a quote, they really, really want you to say a certain thing. And so we have this we have a tendency to say, yes, the answer is blah. And then of course all of a sudden it's on the news and you've got a problem. It's much better for you to say, no problem, give me your phone number, give me your name, we'll ring you back in 5 minutes. By the time the 5 minutes is over, you've gathered the information you need, you've calmed yourself, you can ring that person back and give them the information they need. Generally speaking, I think it's fair to say that if you are giving them that information quickly, without notice, it's probably going to be a mistake.
Thanks, Steve. That's really good advice.
You're welcome.